Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our first session on the third and last day in this 13th International Conference for Teachers of English. New Perspective in TOEFL in the Post-Pandemic Era. This morning, it is a great pleasure for me to introduce our presenter, Dr. Sunita Gandhi. Dr. Gandhi will be explaining the disruptive pedagogy of foundational literacy accelerating learning for all. Dr. Gandhi is an Indian educator, innovator, researcher, and author who has made significant contributions in transforming educational processes. After completing her PhD in physics from Cambridge University in the UK, Dr. Gandhi worked as a research scientist at Lawrence Berkeley Laboratory and later joined the World Bank as an economist. However, her passion for education led her to establish the Council for Global Education and set up experimental schools in Czech Republic and Iceland. In India, Dr. Gandhi founded the Vicente, introducing innovative approaches to education and assessments that have been successfully implemented in over 5,000 schools across India. Her work has received international recognition, and she has served as a chief academic advisor to the prestigious City Montessori School, the world's largest school founded by her parents. Her tireless effort and visionary approach continue to drive positive change in the field of education. So now, please welcome Dr. Gandhi.
Thank you so much indeed. It's an absolute honor and privilege to be speaking on the other side of the earth, literally, with audiences from across the globe and, of course, mainly, I suppose, from Honduras. It's a whole new world, and I'm lovely to discover it. And with the permission of the anchor here, Dr. Dinara, may I please share my screen and my presentation? Okay, so yes, thank you for your nod. I'd like to give the title to my presentation is Disruptive Pedagogy, and in particular, dealing with the foundational literacy and numeracy so that we can accelerate learning for all, because foundational learning is obviously the foundation for the rest of learning. And so I started working on it in an experimental way several years ago, 22 years ago to be precise, when I was able to get the wind a bit to run Iceland's first two charter schools. So there I had a complete freedom to create whatever I wish. And so a lot of the thought process started to begin there. I think a researcher always needs freedom, as you'll agree. And so I got the freedom in Iceland. I could do a lot of things with that freedom. And there my research was about ipsative, accelerating learning, but with the idea of competition with self and not with others. So, and from there on, a lot of research was done. In 2014, before that I came back to India, I decided to work on literacy of the underprivileged children, government schools, and look at why is it that children and adults take years to learn and not weeks and months. They already know their language, so why can't they read in that language? So that also, and then of course, many of the children who are in the program now are doing both English as a second language as well as their mother tongue in different languages. So the title is Disruptive Pedagogy of Foundational Literacy and Numeracy, FLN, Accelerating Learning for All. And my organization is Devi Sansthan, that stands for Dignity, Education, Vision International. So if you look at literacy, it is at the heart of all SDGs. If you want to address the Sustainable Development Goals, I think we have to work on literacy. It's not just SDG 4.1 or 4.6, but it's also about being the foundation for the rest of the SDGs, like climate action. So United Nations Sustainable Development Goal 4.1 is that by 2030, all girls and boys will complete free, equitable, and quality primary and secondary education that will lead to relevant and effective learning outcomes for all without discrimination. The goal 4.6, SDG 4.6, is that by 2030, we have to ensure that all youth and a substantial proportion of adults, both men and women, will achieve literacy and numeracy by 2030. So that's a very ambitious goal given the setbacks also due to COVID. But even without COVID, I don't know whether we would have attained this. And UNICEF has declared that the problem of literacy is nearly insurmountable. Isn't that an amazing observation? That we're not going to get there. We're not going to have universal literacy, according to them, unless we do something dramatic. They're saying that learning losses due to school closures have left up to 70% of 10-year-olds, that's grade 5 children, 70% of them are not able to read or understand a simple text. And this is up from just over 50% before the pandemic. But 50% also is not an acceptable figure. That's a lot of people who are going to suffer the rest of their lives, the consequence of not knowing their literacy. And the problem is basically a failed education system, and fifth graders are not able to acquire the foundational skills as quickly as they need to. So it is about slow speeds of learning, and they're a huge barrier to widespread literacy. And we need to figure out, why does it take so long to teach the child or an adult in their mother tongue? Surely we cannot afford another 5 years, that is another, say, grade 1 to 5, to attain just 50% level of children being able to read. And we're going to lose so many children who are at that age, transition from primary to secondary schools and beyond. Many girls, many women who are not able to read. There's also the observation that literacy rates and improving them is a critical step in reducing poverty and promoting economic growth. One extra year of schooling can increase an individual's earning bar by 10% on average, just one extra year of schooling. And the return on investment for every dollar on a girl's education can be as high as $10 in some developing countries. So basically 10 times is the return on investment when we spend it for girls' education. Now, there is unfortunately the problem of pedagogy, I would say. And this is where our research work was more on pedagogy, because the teachers really want the children to succeed. They're working very hard. 3 years later, 5 years later, they're not seeing the impact of their hard work. And I think at the heart of it is the way we teach, especially when we talk about reading. Now, unlike speaking, we can speak, we learn from our surroundings. We don't have to be taught in a particular sequence or anything like that. We learn naturally to speak, but not to read. Reading has to be taught. So can we make it natural? Can we make it almost natural? And this is what I've been, researching. So whole language is where majority of the world is still teaching the whole language way, though according to research, phonics is better. But phonics also is not necessarily getting children up to speed in terms of being able to read text as quickly as we need in order to circumvent the problem of universal illiteracy. It is very highly structured. There are many rules, what you do and don't do. These hold back learning. And you have to remember these rules. And the biggest of them is that you have to start with a letter. So basically in phonics, we talk about the letter, for example, C. So children need to know that's A, B, C, D, all of that. And then they need to learn about the sound of the letter C. So C says ka. Now, nobody can know that C says ka because it's not a natural derivative. So the teacher has to teach the C says ka. And there are many great programs that teach that in a better way, with more kinesthetic, hands-on way. And then after C says ka, then there's a picture representation, maybe, say, for example, a cat. So C says ka as in cat. And both are unknown. C is unknown, ka is unknown, and there's the letter to sound association. What in alpha, this pedagogy that I'm talking about, we've given it the name alpha, which stands for accelerating learning for all. And here it is actually quite different, because we're not relying on anything unknown. In fact, everything you see in the picture, which is below that, you see all of it is either known to the child or can be derived by the child through his cognitive mind connections. So it's known to unknown. And you can say known to derived to unknown. So we don't treat the letters as letters. We call them sounds. They are sounds of if you like, of the first sounds of the pictures. So they're sound symbols rather than letters. So child is seeing it only as a symbol for a particular sound. So there are two children, let's say, in a class, and we do a lot of paired learning, by the way. The entire modality is through paired learning. And both children don't know any letters, they don't know anything at all. They just know the pictures because they're from their environment. And if they're not from the environment, it's being taught as a second language, then the first thing we do is get children familiar with the pictures and their first sounds. So once they know the pictures, now they're known to them. So one child will ask the other, both don't know anything much at all, will ask the other child, what is this? The other child will say, this is a car. So then the first child will ask, what is the first sound that you hear in car? Car. So they'll say ka, right? I mean, different times, in phonics, there's this, the sounds are presented differently, but nevertheless, for a minute, even if we accentuate the sound, car, ka, then second picture is pointed to, and the second child says it's an apple. The first child asks what's the first sound of apple. So the second child says ah, apple, ah. Then it could be tub, it could be tent, it could be a top. What is the third picture? And the child will say it's a tub, and the first sound is tub. So now the last question that the first child will ask the second child is, what word do you get when you add the three sounds together? So the second child will say ka, a, ta, cat. And this is the entire lesson. Once they know this lesson and they know how to work with each other and what questions to ask and what answers to give and what are first sounds, what are the pictures, and they see these sounds, symbols in front of them, they're able to create this much learning for themselves for the first, depends on the version, 5 pages. In just 5 pages, the children can learn the entire sounds, the first 25 sounds of the English alphabet. They're total 44, and they learn the first 25. That is, C and K have the same sound, K. And now they are able to read not just the sounds, they're also able to read words, and they make it on their own without the help of a teacher. And this is the biggest difference, because abstraction is happening at a super fast pace, which we did not know earlier. We knew, like, from the abacus, there's abstraction. So the kit is the abacus is needed initially to move things up and down to do numbers, but then very soon the children shed the abacus and they do it in the head. Similarly here, what we found is that with the picture and the sound symbol as the first sound, it's sitting in the head of a child very quickly. And then when you give them other words, which are formed from the same letters, the first lesson has 5 letters. If you form words from those same 5 letters, then these words they can read without the pictures. And this happens really quickly on the same day or the next day. So in the first lesson, they're learning 5. Sometimes, depending on the language, it could be 6, 7. In Hindi, we teach 10 on the same day. And they're able to read 36 words after that without pictures, which are made from the same letters. So the question is which approach to go forward with. And so whole language phonics, there's also balanced literacy, which is basically a certain combination of whole language and phonics. And then there is this alpha, that we're calling alpha. Now you can see these children working in pairs in government schools of India, and they're learning English or Hindi or any language. In fact, we have got it in many languages of India. They're reading this on their own with each other, and they can read maybe 15 pages on their own without the teacher coming back again to teach anything again. That one formula works for them for a long, long time. So results are very, very fast. And this is what we really need at this point in time. We need the results to be super fast so that we can make the world literate very quickly. So we start with mother tongue literacy, and then we can go into English as a second language or other languages as second languages. In India, we're teaching both, and they're doing very well with both with this approach. So we're saying it only takes 45 days to finish the very thin booklets if you give them in print. For the numeracy, we also do numeracy, not just language. Numeracy booklet is just 28 pages. The Hindi reading booklet is just 32 pages, and the writing booklet is just 12 pages. We give it on for free. We give it all across the country to the government schools. But also we have it on an app that is freely available worldwide. We've got now schools in the United States, in Guyana. In Honduras, we're about to begin a pilot with Suzanne Rajkumar, who might be here, I'm not sure. And in addition to that, it's going on in Peru, and Suzanne was our person who trained them from Honduras. So that was really exciting, and is going in Africa, is going everywhere. We only started Alpha last year after 8 years of active research, working in the slums and villages of India and in the government schools and private schools of India. So very thin booklets. They don't even take 30 days if you teach it properly, meaning give it the time that it needs, 30 working days, but say 45 days. And after that, they are able to surpass the goals, what I call the foundational literacy and numeracy goals, which are gauged at grade 3. So they can read at grade 3 level. They can understand what they're reading, and they're also able to make questions for each other, which is bringing in critical thinking. They're very creative. We found children to be humongously creative. For example, when they come up with a set of letters and put them in a box or in a circle, then they're making lots of words on their own in a very short span of time. They're very, very creative. And then after the first 45 days, we move into term 2, which is another 45 working days, where they cover any kind of prescribed textbooks and workbooks, and they're able to do the entire year worth of textbooks and workbooks in a mere 45 days. And the reason is that they've done Alpha before that. Otherwise, it would be very difficult. And if they learn the whole language way or the rote way, they're going to take ever so long. 3 years is also not enough many a times. And then we probably, in this particular pedagogy, will have time left for children to go into broader goals like service to humanity, taking up a language, which should be a daily affair, not a weekly affair, and so many things that they can do at this point in time, including improve their comprehension skills, their writing skills, that are just ad infinitum. You just continue to have to do that for the rest of your life, even at adult age. So in India, the goals have been very clearly set by the Ministry of Education of India. And for example, for grade 3, which is the level of foundational literacy and numeracy that every child has to come up to by grade 3, they need to be able to read with at least fluency of 60 words per minute. They need to read with meaning and understanding. They need to be able to read and write numbers up to 9999, that's nearly 10,000, and they need to be able to solve simple multiplication problems. So that's some very simple gauges, and they're elaborated further in other documents. So basically, we're talking about pair learning as being a very much an amazing possibility that we have ignored. I mean, research is very, very conclusive that pair learning is very powerful. This is years of research. What we did is put that in the process, and we made materials that children don't need us. They don't need the teacher. Once they've understood what their task is, they can get on with it for a long, long time. It's like winding up a clock, and we only wind it up, and they go, go, go for a very, very long time. And they co-create learning, and we're giving agency to the children to learn by themselves and create their own learning. And it's really powerful. And on the right, there's a village level school. On the left is children from a slum studying in a nearby government building. So I just will play a quick video of this one on the right. See, this is the beauty of it also. They can say very good umpteen times a day, millions of times in a week, a month. They hear very good, well done, clap for each other. And it's so reinforcing. Plus, they're creating questions for themselves. They can pick up a number of matchsticks, ice cream sticks, put them on the table. The other child will count and tell how many it is. And then they'll reverse roles. They learn citizenship skills because they're reversing roles and learning to say, well done, and so many other citizenship skills. Right in the system. If you try to fix the old system of education to deliver on collaboration, communication, critical thinking, it's a lot harder because it's sort of an add-on to something that is not really designed for collaboration, for example, or communication between children. Here you see children, very young children, I mean, in both cases, grade 1 children here. For example, they're bringing these gram beans from home, and they're pulling out a bunch of them in front of the other child. The other child is counting and then matching it with a chit of paper that has that number. So you see these chits of paper on the left side or the right side of the left picture. And there's the FLN book you can see on the table as well. So the kids can look at the visual and know what their task is. The teacher can do a demo as to what they're expected to do, and then they get on with it for a long time. And similarly here, as you can see, they're doing building numbers for each other. So it's both literacy and numeracy, but here's the numeracy part for a minute. The power of pairs.
Paired learning is the cornerstone of the Alpha program. Children working together in pairs enable rapid rates of learning. In this video, we are going to discuss that why paired learning is effective, why random pairing, and how to make pairs. Let's begin with why paired learning is effective.
Many studies have shown that paired learning is more swift and it's more effective, and it helps in improving children's performance, their academic performance, their social development, as well as their motivation and the engagement in the activity.
A traditional classroom has a teacher-people ratio of 40:1, which really makes it difficult for the teacher to pay attention on each and every child. But when we talk about random pairing, this ratio becomes 1:1. The child is engaged and doing the activities.
The Times of India Joe Smith tracks are up to half-kilometer long, 2 feet wide.
Okay, so we make random pairs
Now the
also.
question comes, why random pairs?
Random pairs, what I think, that children enjoy the surprise. They understand better when they have a concept explained by their peers whose thought processes are almost similar to their own thought processes. It also avoids sorting and labeling of children. Labeling and sorting of children, it really disheartens them.
Today we are going to read sun, moon, sky and stars. When we get up in the morning, it is daytime. We always see the sun shining in the sky. Planet has its satellites too. As planets go around the sun, satellites go around their planets. Hey Anvi, I don't know the meaning of satellite. Please tell me the meaning of satellite. Yes, let me search from my dictionary. Okay. An artificial object placed on our orbit round a planet. Thank you, Anvi. Hey, Anvi, let's revise chapter Sun, Moon, Sky and Stars. What stars? Don't worry,
So you see the
I did go to play.
okay. So you can see there's a lot of agency given to the children to work by themselves with each other. Oh, I'm sorry. I think I shut the PPT by mistake. Okay. So here is a video that I also would like to share briefly with you. Compare and contrast with the open system.
Today we will do question and answers, okay? So you have to copy it. Question number 1.
I'm so sorry. I'm doing it all wrong. Okay, here you go.
Question number 1. The wall. Question number 1. The wall. Okay, and full stop. So you have to copy this question. What was Tim hitting at the wall? Tim was hitting a ball at the wall.
Who sat on a rat? The cat sat on a rat. Who sat on a mat? The cat sat on the mat.
Today, children, we will learn the table of 2. You have to learn the table by heart. 2 1 2, 2 2 4, 2 3 6, 2 4 8, 2 5 10.
What is the first picture? Rishi. What is the first sound? Re. What is the second picture? Sakur. What is the first sound? Sh. What is the third picture? Hal. What is the first sound? What word will you get when you add the three sounds together? Rish.
In traditional classroom, children fear marks and exams. In Alpha Pedagogy, children are engaged in joyful learning. They are driven by curiosity.
Hello ma'am. Welcome ma'am. I want to buy few things. Yes ma'am. I want this pencil box. It is of 100 rupees. And I want this book. It is of 50 rupees. And I want this bag. It is of 5 rupees. Plus 100. Plus 50. Plus 5. Equal to 155 rupees. Thank you, ma'am. Welcome. Bye-bye. Bye.
So the question is, which classroom did you prefer? Maybe take a poll. Just mention in the chat box if you're on YouTube, and here in Zoom, in the chat, which process is better, the traditional or maybe perhaps something different, like Alpha, where children have the agency to learn. Okay, good. I'm getting all the comments immediately here. That's great. Yeah, that's great. Okay, so and I'm sure you have reasons to believe that this might be not just better, but it's actually working in the sense of children being able to learn by themselves. It's quite incredible to notice how much capacity the children have, and this is what we have not believed in. I think we've broken up the learning into so many smaller pieces that it really doesn't allow the flow of learning to happen in a natural way. And here we're doing a bit of structure, maybe in the sense that we've got, we're dealing with, let's say, learning of the letters backwards from words, and sound. There's a particular formula, like a maths formula or a physics formula, but the children are on their own and they're learning on their own. They're going in any direction. Some kids might be working on numbers that are, really in tens and ones. Others might be working on thousands, tens and ones in the same class, and they'll all come up to grade. And they're learning so fast that they're all going ahead of their classes in that short time. They're going well beyond their FLN skills. At the moment, Alpha is going on because the Ministry of Education, I texted the Secretary of Education when I was getting these brilliant results last year in January, February in 2022. So I texted her that 5-year-olds are reading newspapers. And she said, let's have a talk. So we met with her, and Anita Karwal, the Secretary of Education of the Ministry of Education of India, very open-minded she was. And we were given then 2 districts of India, which are considered the low-performing districts of India, to go and work with the government schools there. Now, it's very difficult to get into government schools almost anywhere in the world. And in India also is super difficult. But we got that breakthrough because of the results and because I had third-party eyewitnesses and research basis for my assertions. So we worked in Sambalpur, Odisha. Now we're working also in Uttar Pradesh. That is the biggest state of India. Odisha is another state in the east of India. We are working here in many, many districts, and you can see children everywhere paired up and working by themselves. Teacher can hardly be seen, hardly ever. And the teacher's only there to observe, but we say to the teacher, sit down and don't stand up, and put your table to the side and not in the front and in the middle. Let the kids work without interference. And this is also internationally. We've, as I mentioned, in Peru and Guyana, in USA, we're also working with adult literacy. We're about to begin with a school called the Kepler School in California. Irvine County, but for the moment is being worked on by adult students in Literacy Chicago, which is an NGO working with adults on their literacy. Then in Maldives, this is teacher training, by the way, it's not adult literacy. Teachers are being trained to implement Alpha in their classes. And if I share with you the videos and the pictures that are coming right now from a 23 school implementation, which is a pilot before they take it nationwide, and they are planning to take it nationwide. They've been supported in this by UNICEF as well. They are just unbelievable feedback that's coming from the teachers and the parents, and the children, of course, are enjoying it, and they're learning gobs. This was a training I just finished couple of weeks ago in Malaysia, in which there were participants from 8 different countries. And so it's now going slowly but surely. We always feel everything is slow, but actually at pretty fast pace, it is getting absorbed in different countries of Asia. It's available also now in 30 languages of the world. And these are the languages in which it's available. There are 15 languages of India and 15 languages of the world. So basically, we're inviting everybody in the global community to adopt this. It's free as long as they take it on the mobile. If they want to print it, we can make an arrangement for its printing in their own country. Right now, we just started up 2 weeks ago. We started Kenya, and there we shipped them from here. It was just a gift from our side, and we wanted them so much to begin. They're working with very, very underprivileged children in Nairobi. So that's Path NGO in Nairobi. In Peru, it's Arcabeta NGO. In some countries like Maldives, we've got the whole government working with us. And we're looking at more government participation, because that's where we can make it totally widespread across the world. And all over the world, they need something that's quick right now and effective as well. So the question on our minds should be, or could be, are current reforms sufficient? Are there sufficient response to the crises? So what are the governments doing? Like in India, they are filling up the education, the classrooms, the education systems with more and more. For example, they're giving them, for grade 1 children, 150 pages workbook, and they can barely hold it in their tiny hands. Their storybooks, loads of print-rich material, which is also a very good direction, but the children can't read, so it's mostly read to by the teachers. There are posters across the walls, and that also is print-rich environment. So all is not bad, but we can't rely upon inputs as a primary way to get outputs, which are far more indicative of children's capacity to read, write, and do basic arithmetic. They're also providing teachers detailed plans, saying for every period what they're going to do, how they're going to do it, how on the 5th day they'll do a test, on the 6th day they will do such and such. And there are trackers, there's remedial classes, there's so much going on. There's more testing also. They're being tested at the local, state, and national level. Teachers also being tested. There's a lot more remedial work in terms of like ability groupings, which of course is not quite supported by Carol Dweck's idea of growth mindset, or the idea of creating fixed mindset about ability comes from our grouping children in the way that we do, which is to differentiate learning. We sometimes classify children as good and not so good. And this is really dangerous direction. We must do away with any kind of comparison of children and think of every child as work in progress, as something, of a great human being, a marvel that we're working with in front of us. There's also extensive teacher training. More training does not necessarily lead to better learning outcomes, because learning the same old things. Maybe a little bit of, improvement at the margins. There's also stricter supervision. So there are people showing up at the door. Are you doing what you're supposed to do? And there's also, to some extent, NGOs are getting involved, which is a good thing, because they bring in some innovative stuff. So like we're an NGO. We've had to be an NGO and a researcher as well, research group as well. So basically what happens is that the teachers are feeling more and more constrained. It's like tying your hands, saying you will do X, Y, Z only, tying your hands down and your feet as well, clamping them up and saying, now dance. See, what we need to perhaps do is hold them accountable for hold them accountable for outcomes. And that's what we're not doing. So teachers should be more free to pick up the kinds of things that will work for her, look up the net, figure out things on her own, learn from the children, learn from implementing change, and then be responsible for the outcome. And that will build more intrinsic motivation in the teacher than the external mechanisms we use at the moment, like greater supervision or stricter planning and so on. We've put the whole our work in the context of a research design. So first and foremost, we randomly select schools through a random selection process. We put roughly half in treatment and half in control. It can vary depending on the size of the implementation. It's very large. The control group need not be that large. We begin with a pre-test of both control and treatment groups. Treatment group is the one that does alpha, and control is one where we only do testing, but don't give our intervention. Pre-test is followed by teacher training and then implementation of the alpha program. Then teachers go around and observe each other, and or the government observes the classes, but we observe now in a friendlier way, different way. And then after the 45 days or so, there is a post-test. And after the post-test, there's impact evaluation and reports are made. And then that forms a basis for further scaling up. So for example, the project we're doing in Honduras, we're looking for somebody to do third-party evaluation, because then we can scale it up further. Here is a third-party evaluation of our work in a book published this year by Harvard Graduate School of Education. Because it is so quick, it's just 45 days, so we began in one of the districts given by India. We began around the third week of August last year. And by October, in 40 days, the post-test was done. And in the post-test, the effect size as quoted by this book by Harvard, that the effect size of the project was 0.23 for grade 3 and 0.89 for grade 5. The results suggest there is significant value in pursuing the alpha model in other schools if implemented in a coherent, structured, and coordinated manner. So that the latter part belongs to the government, how they don't mix up things. They don't have too many other requirements from the teacher. They put entire effort on FLN first, and therefore they are dedicated to doing alpha properly. At the moment, there are lots of issues with the government teachers being dragged into so many other jobs. So anyway, this is something very interesting, because we got evidence immediately, almost, for a project that only started last year. We have documentation narrative as well around it. They also wrote about the oral reading fluency after the 40-day period. And they're saying that the students in the intervention, that's the treatment group, had much higher oral reading fluency than those in the reference group. So, for example, 50% versus 21% reading at 90 words per minute, and so forth. The qualitative outcomes are also very real. For example, children are improving, the student attendance has gone up. There's greater amount of intrinsic motivation. Teachers really want to do this. They're really excited about getting their children's skill up, something they always wanted to do. But because of the old pedagogy, they were not able to pull it as fast and as well. There is also a greater sense of well-being, because teachers are galvanizers. They're not supposed to be facilitators. They're not supposed to be guide by the side. They're supposed to be galvanizers. It has its own roles. For example, they need to speak languages of encouragement, not praise. They're supposed to let the children figure things out on their own, give them plenty of time to figure things out on their own, and things like that. There are a lot of there's a whole schedule to what a teacher might want to. I don't mean in terms of like you will do XYZ, but in terms of guiding principles of a galvanizer. And with those guiding principles, they are free to do whatever they wish. For example, one of the guiding principles is you will not compare children in any form or shape. So now you can do it whichever way you wish. There's also greater level of parent satisfaction. There is the development of what we call at our end, the 4 C skills, which have been alluded to by Michael Fullan as 6 C skills, but we separated them in a slightly different take. Collaboration, communication, creativity, and critical thinking. Those are the skills, because they need to have those skills and they need to develop those skills, which they can hardly ever develop in a normal traditional classroom. And the outcome, which we're calling the traits, are also 4. And in this, we have got character as a trait of a child. It cannot be taught, it's built, it's modeled, and so many other things. Then there's climate consciousness. We want to create a new generation of children who are climate conscious. And this is built into the program in many, many different ways. There's the outcome or the trait of connectedness, that I'm not just working with you, I'm not just collaborating with you, but I care about you, I'm connected to you. And this thing is building a lot of social, emotional, and mental well-being for the children. And then finally, citizenship, which is a lot more things. Of course, you can say all of it is citizenship, but we wanted also children to, for example, take turns to ask each other questions and to say very good and things like that, which really in some small way starts them off on citizenship. So here are some pictures from our implementation in the Maldives that's going on at the moment as we speak. These pictures came about a week ago. And the question on our mind is whether Alpha is a pedagogy of the future or the pedagogy of the future. Can it be the pedagogy of the future? Now you'll answer that for yourselves. Can it be the pedagogy of the future? And look at how joyful the kids are, how engaged they are. And every single day they're working like this, and they're learning so much faster than the traditional ways and so much more real, so much more with understanding. Here, for example, in the bottom right, they're building tessellations of their own. So policy recommendations are that monitoring of outcomes should be there, and look at outcomes, not inputs. You can learn under a tree, but those outcomes are what we need to hold our whole community responsible for. And provide room for the teachers to do different, like master chefs. You give them a pantry full of different ingredients, they go in there and make the best cake that the jury wants. But they're free to do whatever they wish with those ingredients. They have certain guidelines. And that's what we do with Alpha, certain guidelines. You're free to do what you wish. External tests, so random visits, rather than doing too many tests, we can do sporadic random tests to see is learning happening. And then, of course, peer accountability is very, very important. A lot more sharing between teachers. We are going to do a sharing session on the 18th of September. So that'll be really nice to see how teachers have come up with their work by that date. And also to scale up the excellent work of the NGOs, because NGOs are actually bringing in fresh breath of air to the government schools and to education process. Even the private schools are doing a lot of innovative work that should be shared. As long as there's some kind of evidence for it, it should be given some possibility for implementation in government schools, and therefore then accelerated at a larger scale. We're also at the macro level, we are asking that there should be a lot more PPP. I know that Chile has relied a lot on PPPs in the past for both health and education sectors. I think that's really a good way to go. Brazil did the cash transfer, the conditional cash transfers. Brasilia, what was it called? A very interesting program in which they gave conditional cash transfers. And this could be done, for example, in the context of girls who don't go to school. So if they pass and they go to school and there's so much attendance, they get some cash transfer to their accounts, which helps them in so many ways to attend school. I've written a book called Disruptive Literacy. It's available on Amazon, and it came out last year. It's a roadmap for urgent global action to get disruptive literacy out there and disrupt the status quo on literacy. This has been published by Bloomsbury India, and so it's available. We are going to now do a second edition of it, but please feel free to order one for yourself if you wish. So basically, we're talking about paradigm shift in FLN. It's like the mobile phone versus a landline phone. And I think we're still in the landline phone. It's just the landline phone has been fixed, like, for example, with more bells and whistles, made sleeker, smarter, better sounds, less, let's say, less length of chords and things like that, or longer chords, in fact. But it is not changing the paradigm in which education is going on. And to change that paradigm, we have to give agency to the children. We have to leave them alone to learn with their own cognitive powers. We have to create the environment for them to learn. And we need to support that every child is a marvel of creation of God and will do really, really well if we provide them certain kind of parameters in which they feel supported. So I think we're looking at a paradigm shift. We have no choice. We don't want 20 years later, we still be doing what we're doing today, just a little better. And this program has received a lot of endorsement from the leadership in India, and we're happy to share that. I'm not going to read all of it, but yes, there's a lot of endorsement of that. We also have now emerging government partnerships in different parts of the world and in India. We also are getting a lot more international partnerships across the world, and that's really a wonderful way to get things out. For example, in Guyana, we've been working with Kupanda Sisters, which is on the bottom left. And we also have an international advisory committee with members from 22 countries that has been sort of our moral support as well as intellectual support. And they're supporting us in so many ways. There's also been a lot of media coverage, like from the Logical India and the Millennium Post and Hindustan Times, Times of India, and so forth. And there's just ton of reports, even in this very short time. So this is our information, and you can see we're on YouTube. There are I think nearly 400 videos on YouTube. You can go inside the classrooms and see what we're doing. We also are posting our next MOOT, which is Massive Open Online Training, which is also free. It's open and it's online. And here we've already registered. I've not seen the latest data, but I think 4 days ago, there were 23 countries registered from which participants are coming. One of our trainings had participation from 53 countries and 26 states and union territories of India. So that was pretty widespread attendance. And we've had Zimbabwe, Nigeria, teachers come from those countries when it's directed just for their teachers and so forth. So we're offering that as a free service across the world, that people take this up. And we're also asking everyone to create a research design. Whatever they do, try to get a control section or a control group, like in Kepler School in the US, we're going to have a control set of children. In Peru, we have control group as well. So that allows us to publish the data and for them to also see how much more did they do. For example, parents get written work. So how much more written work, how much more learning, how much more have they done better in their academics and so forth. So there are videos of the MOOT also on the YouTube channel at Devi Sansthan. The Monday MOOT is already advertised there. Otherwise, please go to our website and you can go from there to the MOOT and join it as well. And please let me request you to join us in terms of whichever form. We can immediately put you up on our app and you can start, or your colleagues and peers can start working with it immediately. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. It was a great and enriching presentation. I don't know if we have any questions or comments from our audience. Okay, in the chat, they are saying that it was very interesting.
Thank you, Fabiola.
Yeah, it was amazing. I really enjoy it. And I love how you're helping those children to become independent learners. That's the part that I like the most. And I think that what I'm gonna take from your presentation is going to be one of the last things that you said, which is that every child is a work in progress. Like that one. That's the one that I like the most. They're writing excellent program. People are asking for the website, they said.
Yes, surely. I'm sending, just putting it in chat.
Okay.
It'll be in the same format as we are in today. This MOOT will be held something similar. So we'll have it on YouTube as well.
Yeah, we're gonna share it there.
Okay, I'm also sending my email because I don't want to miss anybody who wants to come to it or be in touch.
Thank you.
To have my email here as well. And my mobile number, I'll give that as well. You can WhatsApp me or use Viber. Okay. So I hope this will be enough to get to us. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we really enjoyed the presentation and we really appreciate your help and you sharing this amazing program with us. So I just want to thank you again, Doctor, for this high quality presentation over this amazing project that you have developed. And we hope to have you again in our next conference.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. Thank you very much,
And
everyone.
thanks to you. And thank you so
Any
much.
questions,
Yeah.
or are you saying there are no questions right?
I don't see questions. I don't know if we have a question or a comment from someone else. It looks like we don't have questions.
Okay.
Oh, we have one.
There is one from Fabiola. Do you think this can work with university students? Actually, yes, I think so. You see, I did my undergrad also in England and my doctorate in England. And what I felt is that, for example, if you have to write something down, we have to write a paper or an essay. Isn't it so much better that I can work with a peer? The two of us, not group, I'm not talking about group, just peers. So I have one other student with me in a pair, and we think about it. We collectively, between us, think of ways of presenting that information, and we share ideas. I think we can produce a lot better paper. So why is it that we are individually assessed or individually gauged? And this assessment becomes the constraint to it becomes a constraint to any kind of reform, because we must assess children in a certain way, or young adults in a certain way. We tend to limit what we can do with them. And assessment is obviously another big area of interest of ours. Assessment only measures written work primarily, and a 3-hour measurement of a whole year's work. It is very unfair. It's not suiting all children. We all know that. But then how do you make assessment relevant? And here, one thing we found in assessment is that the children are so much ahead of their grade in this process that assessment has lost its meaning. Because why do we assess? We want to figure out where the gaps in learning are, where the children need to improve more. What is my class average? What is every child's average? So we can bring these parents to a PTM and tell them your kid is needing this or that or the other. We don't see the glass half full. We tend to see the glass half empty. We tend to treat children as marks, or assessing them for marks. And so we narrowly define their whole psychology is linked to marks. And I think this is really reducing children in ways that are not necessarily the right ways for the 21st century. So they should be free to express themselves in a variety of ways. They must be their own self-assessment. They should be ahead of the game. You set the standards and let them beat those standards. So it's always far greater than you'll expect. So yes, at the university level, absolutely. So if anybody would like to do a pilot of that at the university level, I would love that very much. We have published a book by Professor Gwyneth Hughes of Institute of Education, UCL, UK, in London, IOE, which is a teachers training college, as you might all know. And there's a Professor Gwyneth Hughes, and she wrote a book called Ipsative Assessment and Personal Learning Gain. And I would highly recommend, I'll type it in here. I'll highly recommend to get yourself a copy of that. And in that, chapter 11 is a chapter from me. And this is based on 15 years of research on the idea of ipsative. That is compared with self rather than compared with others. The entire book is about university education and university level implementation of the idea of ipsative. And she has shown how ipsative works better for psychology of the student, and it produces better results as well. And there I have the chapter on K-12 education. So I'll type it in. And yes, of course, it'll work very well at university level. We just need to go out and do it. I'm putting the name of the book here. It's by Professor Gwyneth Hughes. And chapter 11 is from me. On maximizing learning gain in classrooms. This is published by Palgrave Macmillan. UK. So, all right. Thank you for the reminder. Yes, indeed.
Great. Thank you, Doctor. We really appreciate it. Okay, if we don't have any other questions, seems like no. Then I just want to thank you again, Doctor, for being here with us. And thanks to our audience for joining us today. And we invite you to be part of the upcoming sessions that we still have for today. Okay, thank you so much for joining us. And see you in the upcoming sessions.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dinara. Thank you very much.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you for